Good morning. Good morning.
Who's here? Oh, you monster. Just because I looked at you on the camera. Just because I looked at you on the camera. You're going to go lie down on your bed. Try not to drop on, maybe. Oh, your bed. Stay there. Lie down. Dodo, you're in the right mood today. Down. Stay there. Winky chops. Right, are we all here, do we think? Here he is. You're in the right old mood today. Come on out, please. Go and lay down on your bed. Don't wind maybe up. Go and lay down. He's in the right mood. Aren't you? You're a monster. You're not a good example. No, you're not. Surprised Auntie Dawn doesn't come to borrow you. Right then. Howdy do. Let's get started. I think it looks like we're all as many as is coming. How's everybody doing? Looks like James and Bruno are having trouble connecting. Can't do anything to help them. So let's have a report from, he's gone off, I can't ask him. Let's have a report from Wilma then. So tell us how you're getting on, Wilma.
Hello. Sorry we missed last week. We had an unavoidable problem. Teddy. Oh, the other dogs are being very noisy. All good. Toilet training. It'll come. It'll come. Other than that, she's just going through the terrible twos. You can't put anything down. You can't leave anything, but she's not naughty. She's just incredibly mischievous, and she's changing so much. What she's able to do and how mischievous she's getting. Yeah. Every week she's just changing so much at the minute. She's just going through that stage.
Yeah. Inquisitive.
Yes, very.
It's sometimes if we change the words, you know, the labels that we put on them, it helps us to cope a little bit better with the fact that it's perfectly natural for them to want to know more about their environment, and the more that their brain develops, the more they want to know, and that can be labeled as naughty, you know, or it can be labeled as inquisitive.
Yeah, she's not naughty. Her habit is when you go for a wee, she jumping up and snatching the toilet paper out of your hands, and she's quick. She's really quick. That's her worst habit at the minute, which I'm trying to stop her doing. But toilet paper is the best thing in the world at the minute. Yeah.
And I think as well, they're not daft. She knows that for whatever reason you can't chase after her.
I know.
It's a really clever time to grab that paper and run with it.
And that's where the little poos come in as well. When she knows that I can't do anything, and then I walk out the bathroom and there's a lovely present for me outside on the landing. But
so the other
slightly better. But
the other thing always when you've got yourself a little situation like that which could become really frustrating for us, and we could start to get angry with it, is you need to help her to have an alternative option. So my first thought with a situation like that would be to have a toy that goes into the bathroom and stays in the bathroom, so it's always available, so that when she comes in expecting the toilet paper game, we've made the toilet paper game unavailable, so we've made access to it as hard as possible. But while we're sitting there and we're busy, we can play with the tug toy or entertain them in a different way, or scatter food onto the floor, or have a chew toy or a Kong toy or something ready, so that when we need to go to the loo, it's already there and we put that down as we go in. But yeah, think ahead and see if you can do a replacement behavior instead of the one that's going to drive you mad. But I actually have to say it's quite funny. So
she makes us laugh every day.
Yeah.
Every day. She has us in stitches.
And dogs are social animals. You know, if they hear you laughing, that is a reinforcer for that behavior. So you're going to see more of it. So, you know.
Yeah.
Good-o. So that's, I'm glad she's doing all right. Yeah. Toileting can take a while. Everybody's different. Some dogs are on it straight away. Some dogs seem to take
99% she's good with just the magic number 2s at the minute. But yeah, it'll come as the weather turns. I think it will get easier as the weather gets nicer. Well,
fingers crossed. Yeah. All right, let's hear from someone else. Let's pick on the Beezers. Tell me how we're getting on.
Hi, good morning. Slow improvements really with his walking, using his long leads to return him and get him to come back to us. Achieved to get off that, got off it already on the long walk this morning. He was just about every 15-20 seconds, and even with rabbits in front, he still came back, so it's good.
Oh, beautiful. Good. I'm glad you've seen an improvement.
Persuaded with food, always.
Sorry?
He's always persuaded with food.
Good. It's nice if you found out what it is that they'll work for and they'll come back for. One word of warning for everybody, even if you've got a brilliant recall when they're tiny puppies, recall almost always breaks up when they hit adolescence. It almost always starts to fail. So be on watch. So count those check-ins. So with my dogs, I like to see them look back or check where I am. Anything less than 15 seconds between check-ins, and I'm starting to think you're kind of losing connection with me. And counting your check-in times, so the time between the last look back to see where you were and the next look back to see where you were, that gives you a good indication of where they are, and whether or not their recall is going to start to fail. You know, how concerned are they about where you are? So we'd like them to be responsible. Keeping your dog being the one who's responsible, keeping an eye on you, really important. So starting, if you've got a good recall and your dog has got good check-in already, then you can start doing little runaways and hideaways and have them you know, go looking for you, because they're the ones with the good noses, the better eyesight, and they're faster than us. So it needs to be their job to keep an eye on where we are. But that's cute. Brilliant.
Good,
No
thank you.
concerns or worries at the moment?
Slippers are even safe these days.
Yeah. Even slippers. No more trouser biting or anything. Fantastic. Good stuff. All right, go on then. Let's have a look at Rachel. You're down as Rachel Jones, but you're going to have to respond. So, can you hear us? Oh, that's just mute Bruno. There we go. You finally seen me. Yay. How are you getting on?
Yeah, he's doing all right. He's doing really well. He enjoys it. He's full
He's
of
off.
it all the time. Full on. He's barking at something.
He's seen something.
Really barking.
Yeah, something going on out there.
The pigeon has decided that he
Oh.
wants to
All right.
bark at. Yeah.
The
Yeah, he's
world is
doing all right. Yeah.
the
Stop
world is
biting.
safe from pigeons once again.
He does eat. Like, obviously, he was ill. And you don't know what he's eating. I went to my mum's earlier and he picked up this cat poo with mold on it. And it's like, you can't watch them all the time. You just don't know what
No.
they're going to get. They're disgusting, aren't they, dogs?
So if you've got, some puppies are just complete rubbish mongers. They constantly want to put something in their mouths. What you've got to be really careful of is not stealing things from them, not chasing after them to take things away all of the time. An interrupt cue, so a cue that tells them, get to me quick because there's going to be something better here. But it also means whatever you're doing just now, if you don't come away from it, I am going to do something to interrupt that behavior. So I'm going to move into your space.
Oh, we can do
So-
that. It's if you get chance. It's like,
Yeah,
we had to
absolutely.
dig all the geraniums out because he'll eat them, you know.
So my other thing is, if you've got somebody that really is that frantic, a couple of things to check is medical, that they haven't got some kind of an issue with their nutrition, that some
Yeah.
dogs that have absorption problems can become nutrient deficient, that your food, if they've got no problem medically, and then it's not that they can't absorb those nutrients, it's that the nutrients are just not available in the diet in the right levels. So things like adding fruits and vegetables to their diet can sometimes help them not be constantly on the search for those extra nutrients.
Yeah.
So that's something worth investigating. But I have had situations where dogs have had to learn to wear a muzzle because they really are they want everything in their mouth and they want to be swallowing those things. So that's a situation called pica, which some dogs can suffer from. So, I think the muzzle is a good alternative, but you don't just slam the muzzle on and let them get over it. You do need to teach them to like wearing the muzzle, and that's not actually such a hard thing to do. It feels like it would be a hard thing to do to have them like the muzzle, but it's the same as we put your lead on before we go for a walk, or we put your muzzle on before we go for a walk. It's just another part of the gear, but it's definitely an option if you've got somebody that really is grabbing everything and swallowing it before you get a chance to get it away
It's the
from
stuff like sheep poo and horse poo. He loves it.
them. Yeah. And a lot of dogs do. Once we've got the leave it cue really sorted out, then that will start to help. And we're going to talk about how to start to make those cues work in the environment today is one of the things I want to talk about. So, but yeah, it's a pain having my Springer Spaniel was very much like that, but because he'd been starved and abused, so he wanted everything in his mouth. He was terrible. So yeah, I do feel for you. Right then, Tess and Richard, you've not reported yet, have you? Let's have a look at you.
Yeah, she's had a fairly good week. She's been walking off a lead again. Quite well behaved. Still still a bit bitey with me. Jumps on the furniture. Gets on our knees when we're trying to work. And won't go down. And you may have noticed she's just been sat on the knee just now.
She's very needy.
Quite needy, really. Won't be left alone. But yeah, she's coming on quite well, really.
So when you say biting, are you seeing what we need to be looking for is a reduction in the frequency
Yeah.
and a reduction in the pressure?
Mm.
So if both of those are going down,
She's nicked your seat, and that's
Yeah.
exactly what she does.
so both of those
Yeah,
are,
I think that's. Yeah, I think she has reduced her biting. It's not quite as bad. The worst time she bites is when I'm putting a lead on and a harness. That's the worst. She just won't let you do that without biting you.
all right.
She's really excited to go for a walk. So
Yeah. Okay. So you think it's excitement to get going rather than fear of having.
probably, yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Right.
so. Yeah. But she
Okay.
doesn't
so
do
we're
it like
going-
anybody else.
It is just Richard she bites.
Is Mummy a bit more gentle when she's doing it? Do you think?
Maybe. Yeah.
Oh, look what we've got now. As soon as you can hear her, she wants a nibble.
Yeah.
If I did that, she'd lick.
All right. And is Daddy maybe the one that plays a bit rougher with his hands?
Probably.
Yeah,
I think you did
probably.
from being a puppy.
Yeah. Yeah, in the garden a bit more. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So we're going to be talking about some of that will come in again today. So hopefully we'll give you some answers to some of that today. So thank you for that. And we've got James and Bruno's report.
Hiya.
Hello.
He's got a bit of an issue with one of his paws at the minute. He's got like a sprain or something, so we're a bit limited with walks and things like that at the minute. Just like 10 minutes at a time, a couple of times a day till we find out on Monday what's what with him. But yeah, other than that, I mean, toileting and that, he hasn't really done anything for over a month now in the house, so I think he's cracked that one. Biting's getting less, but he still has the odd mad minute. A couple of times a day where he's just like he's got rabies or something, he goes mental. And then as soon as he comes out of it, he's completely different.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Beautiful. We're going to be talking about that today and why that happens. So hopefully that'll answer some questions for you there.
Yeah. But
Any other concerns?
not really. I mean, as far as I can make out, he's a typical bulldog. He doesn't listen to much what you say. He's not really interested in doing anything other than people talking to him when you go out for a walk. If people walk past and don't acknowledge him, he's not happy. But yeah, he just plods along and does his own thing, and most of the time doesn't listen to a word you say, which apparently is an English bulldog trait. So
Yeah, they are one of the harder dogs to find the motivators for.
yeah,
Yeah. So that
but he's not particularly naughty, you know. So it's not as much of an issue, if that makes sense, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. But I think it's worth investigating and seeing if you can find something that switches him on.
Yeah,
But we're gonna have a talk about motivators again today.
Yeah.
So right. Anybody else? Anything come up since you've heard other people report that's just made you think, hang on, I forgot. I just want to get your attention before I go off on my spiel. We all fairly happy? Okay. So
Yeah, I've got one thing about when we take him for a walk, he's fantastic, absolutely brilliant. But when I take him for a walk, either in the dark or from the house, he just wants to run back. So we have to take him out, even though we live in a nice village, we have to take him out in the car because otherwise he won't walk. You have to all pick him up and carry him.
yeah,
He
okay.
prefers to come back than to go. Maybe it's because we're feeding him too well.
Okay, so first of all, it's absolutely normal. It's normal for pups, and it's very common for people to say to me they don't want to walk from home. And my personal thoughts on that, if we put ourselves inside the head of the puppy, the den, the home, is the safest place in their world. It's where they feel the most secure. And immediately outside of their door is generally their first experience of walking. And we will have, usually most of us will have accidentally associated that very first experience with something that's not very pleasant from the puppy's point of view. So we will have not acclimatized themselves to the sensation of the collar and the sensation of being restrained by the lead well enough when they go for their first walk. So their first walk quite often is associated with that discomfort and that restraint. Or it can just be the difference between indoors and outdoors. So it can just be the sound suddenly that they're being exposed to, the sound of the traffic, the largeness of the space, the fact that there's no ceiling above them, you know. So it's those very first associations. And if we compare how a natural canid, a dog living in the wild, the puppy would come out a few steps, then go back in, and they'd come out and they'd go back in, and they'd basically slowly expand the distance that they went away from the den by their own choosing. Whereas what we tend to do as humans is we tend to step out and expect them just to happily follow us. We maybe don't give them the processing time that they really need, the choice to be able to go back. Yeah. So what I would say to you is start over as if your puppy has never walked. With regards to your front door and the street and the village, I would start as if your puppy's never been on a walk. And what I would do is I would expect not to go. So I would stand there with my pup and I would let them choose when they take the next steps. What I would do is if they choose to take themselves a bit further, I'm going to make sure there's something nice there for them to find. I'm not going to make a big deal out of it. I'm not going to treat it as a reward, but I'm going to have a little pile of food ready there for them to find if they're brave enough to get themselves there. Yeah. And then I'm going to make it absolutely clear to them that they can run back in and they can stay in. They don't have to come back out again. Yeah. So you let them do that natural process of exposing themselves, not expecting the walk, and do that until your puppy then starts. They'll slowly, what they're doing is they're building a picture of how to get back to safety. They're building this memory map of how to get back to safety. And the difference between that and when you go for a drive, there isn't that already learned fear of that situation. That's the difference. Yeah. So yeah, it's common. So I think if you can take it back to first principles. Right then, does everybody understand or heard the term enrichment? Anyone not understand it? Or I'm going to tell you what it is anyway. So enrichment is providing the puppy the opportunities to grow experiences and to gain reinforcement by their own choice and actions. Okay, it builds confidence. It uses mental cognition, so it uses the upper brain because they're thinking and they're learning, and it uses up a lot of energy. Do you know that your brain is the most energy hungry part of your body? It is the one part of your body that uses up the most energy. So if you want dogs who are easy to live with and who are tired, one of the best things to do is to use up their brain rather than trying to get them physically tired. Physical tiredness can leave you still feeling anxious and tense. So if any of you have got a friend who's a fitness freak, you'll find that quite often when they're supposed to be relaxing, they're still quite sort of, you know, tense and movie. So no amount of physical exercise is going to make your puppy easier to live with. All you end up with is a really, really fit dog who's still on high alert. So enrichment is anything that we can provide for the dog to use up that mental energy. And I did pick all my photos out. I thought I got it ready for you. Then I haven't. I've left it somewhere. So that's things like Kong toys and licky mats. It's anything that comes out of the recycling bin that you're intending to throw away. So old pop bottles, milk cartons, any kind of cardboard box. And the aim is that the dog should have to face a little challenge. They should have to think and figure out how to get the pieces of food out of that situation. It should be doable though. The aim is not to provide them with a puzzle that's too difficult. The aim is to provide them with a puzzle that is doable and achievable, because they actually get two rewards. They get the food reward when they finally get in there, but they actually get the reward of having achieved. So that's a little chemistry in the brain called dopamine. And that's the reason that we do things like jigsaw puzzles, even though we don't get paid to do them. We do them because it's the achievement. And, you know, these computer games and things that we're not going to get paid when we get to the end, are we? It is the achievement that pays itself. So it's really important when we're picking these little enrichment items for our dogs to do, that we're making sure that they are achievable goals. Okay, so it can also be new experiences are enriching. So something that your dog hasn't done before. So I just this week at the daycare, I'll show you, I went and bought a new gift for our daycare dogs. And that is ball pool balls. I'm hoping everybody's seen ball pool balls and know what I mean. We just trap them inside a space. And here's the beasties and their experience of that. This is the first time they've seen them. Quite a few of the dogs have never seen them before. So the enrichment that's involved in here is, how do I move my feet when the surface that I'm walking on is different, it moves. Taking it in turns beautifully. Excuse me, I'm going in next. Is it safe? Can I investigate it to find out if it's going to cause me any problems? It's the youngest one in that group that day. How do I move my legs? How do I get over and into that space and that situation? So there's no food or anything in there at the moment to cause them to want to go in there. It's literally the new sensation, the new experience that is making them want to go in there. Okay, so I'm not going to force you to watch all of that. It's on Little Tykes group if you want to see the other videos as well. So something like that, even things like setting up little wobble boards, so a brick and a fairly solid piece of wood or plywood, so that as they step onto it, it kind of moves a little bit, not in a dangerous way, but in a way that's going to make their body and their brain have to adapt to that new situation. Remembering that we don't want to set it up to be fear-inducing, but if it kind of pushes them a little bit, so that new experience makes them think, ooh, is it okay? So they're using their brain, processing that experience, which means that they're growing new neural connections, which means that the next new experience, they're more likely to face with a glass half full attitude, a positive attitude, expecting a nice outcome from that experience. So every new experience can be a really, really good thing as long as we set it up, but it's really important that we do provide those experiences for the dogs. The next thing I wanted to talk about was getting routines in place, and that's especially important, I think, if you have been on furlough or if you've been working away from home. I really want you to think about getting those, getting your calendars sorted out now and starting to help your dog to understand the routines that their future life is going to run around. So Google Calendar, I love, you know, I put specific time slots in the calendar for my dogs to make sure that they're being provided with their needs. So what are a dog's needs? Let's just go to share again because I want to see this bit. I've lost my share screen. So when you're talking about a dog's needs, I really love this little graphic. This is a hierarchy of dogs' needs, and it was done by a lady called Linda Michaels. And first we need to make sure that their biological needs at the bottom of the triangle are all sorted out. And above that, we've got emotional needs, which we're going to talk a little bit about later on. So that's love, security, consistency, knowing who you need to listen to, who's got access to the best things. Then we need social needs, which is play and interaction, either with the dogs in your home or friend dogs, rather than every single dog that they meet. It's not appropriate to expect them to be friendly and want to interact with every dog that they meet, but they do need friendship groups and play groups, human interaction as well. And then force-free training. Now, can you see this is right at the top of the triangle here? We need to really consider these base needs first before we start thinking about training the dog. If we haven't sorted out those base needs, we're going to have problems trying to get into good training experiences with them. And then right at the top, we've got cognitive needs, thinking needs to have their brain used and grown and to reach their full potential. Okay. So I just got a beep. Did somebody beep or put a hand up or something? I don't know why I went beep. Are you all okay? Are you all with me still? Have I lost you? Give us a hands up or a shake or a thumbs up or something, so I know you can still hear me. Beautiful. Thing went beep. So any questions at the moment about any of that, or do you want to tell me what you have? Let's have a go at that. Has anybody provided their dog with a brand new experience, it's similar to that with regards to enrichment, that you want to tell me about? Or does anyone want to admit that perhaps it's not something they've really considered?
So we've got Oscar one of those feeding puzzle mats, because during the day he does spend a lot of time, although there's people in the house all day, he's downstairs on his own, because we wanted him to learn that he couldn't be with somebody all of the time. So to keep him entertained, once a day we feed him with a puzzle mat.
And I think
best with buying dog toys as well, so he's got something new to play with.
Yeah. And I think that new toys, especially, I know it can feel like it's a bit expensive, but actually if you rotate them, so the new toys that they've got that week go away for a couple of weeks and then they come out again, they are new again as far as the dog's concerned. So don't be sticking just to the one thing. It's a bit like if I only gave you the one jigsaw and I just said, just keep doing it. You know, you're gonna get bored of it quite quickly. It's not that you don't like doing jigsaws and it's not that you don't like doing puzzles. It's just you've done that one before. Whereas, I don't know about you, but if it comes out again in 6 months' time, I want to do it again because I want to challenge myself again. Yeah, so rotate them. But yeah, brilliant way of teaching them to spend time on their own. Absolutely. If they start to learn, they can still have access to you, or they can go away and do that puzzle toy. So is that Wilma waving at me? Do you want to go? Yeah, go on then. If you just unmute yourself for me, Chick. Well done.
We got one of the puzzle ones, one of the Nina Otterson ones.
Yeah.
And this one has been really good for it. It's a bit chewed, but that's from the other dogs, not Wilma. We left it with the other two whilst we had a class with you one day, and this is what happened. And it's actually really good, and it's not so hard that she can't get the treats out. It's about the right level, and it's worked really well for her. And that we got it from Pets at Home. I think it was about 10 quid. Yeah, cheaper than something on the store on the internet.
And that is another very good point you just made, is also to try and find the chew type that is appropriate for your dog. So I know that I mentioned using your recycling, but obviously I'm not going to give recycled plastics and things to a dog that I know is a swallower. So if he's likely to chew it into pieces and swallow it, then I'm less likely to be giving that particular dog those. Whereas if I see a dog who, you know, rips into it, gets the treats out, and then is not that bothered about that particular item anymore and doesn't want to chew it and swallow it, then I'm going to happily do that. But yeah, they can be expensive. You do need to judge your dog's force in their mouth. If you've got the kind of dog who really has got very bad very strong back teeth scissor action, they can dissect objects really easily. So for them, you're going to be looking at things that really can take that. And there's lots of really tough toys available. It's just a case of finding the one for your dog. Even harder, I live with 3 who are all expert chewers. They're all brilliant dissectors. They use their back teeth really strongly. So yeah, you become a little bit limited. But luckily, touch wood, so far, mine are not swallowers. They tend to dissect and then spit. So, all right. Anyone else then with that bit? Concerns that maybe you're not doing enough of it, or fairly happy that you're on it? And when you're starting to teach them to spend time on their own and you're sorting out your calendar, what I want you to do is to go with the dog's capability. If we are forcing the dog to stay away from us and we're putting them into a pen or a cage or something and the dog's getting upset, we may actually be causing them to be more distressed by the idea of being on their own. We want the dog to choose to go away from us because they want to go and do something. And one of the easiest ways of doing that is to take something like a stuffed Kong and secure it in some way. So things like garden wire is really, really good. So you can put a hole through your Kong, you can secure the Kong inside the cage so that they can't bring it away from that space. Does that make sense? So they've got 2 choices. They can have access to you, or they can go and chew. And chewing and laying down and emptying a Kong and having to hold it with your paws, they're all very relaxing. And quite often your dog will then fall asleep and start to learn how to be on their own. So you need on your calendar, you need toilet times, you need exercise times, you need training time, and you need love and affection and cuddle times. Yeah, so access to your available times, alone times, which I'm going to put alone/sleep times, and food times. Okay, and I know that feels like a lot, but actually, from your dog's point of view, if you have those in 5-minute slots and you rotate them through your day according to how your day is, everybody's day structured differently, but you do need to make sure you're providing for all of those needs on Maslow's triangle. Okay, so proofing then is a word, it's a dog trainery word. We're going to start thinking about proofing. Now that we've got some trained behaviors and the dog's starting to understand what we mean when we're training those behaviors at home, we need to start helping the dog to understand that those behaviors are the same outside in the world, regardless of what's going on around them. So we're going to call it building resilience of that cued behavior, that trained behavior in the presence of other environmental cues, which might cause a different response. Now that's all a bit sciencey, so we'll just take that back a bit. So your dog might have a really, really good cued sit. When you say sit, they might do a really good sit straight away. And that's all well and good until you go out and you ask them to sit when they're looking at another dog or when somebody is holding a piece of food. you know, they've got their beef burger. Hello, monkey. They've got a beef burger and your dog wants to go over and investigate the beef burger rather than doing a sit for you. So proofing is helping the dog to understand that it means that you must do it even when there is that other thing going on. Now, we did start it a little bit, and when the way we started it was we were doing our little dances while we were expecting the dog to maintain that position and that behavior. So we'll go over that a little bit again. Dodo's ready to do a demo. He's a bit keen this morning. He wants to play. He'll have a cuddle instead, but actually what he wants to do is train, which is why he's nagging at me. So one of the big breakdowns, I think, for most owners is when they've got a dog who, and they quite often will come to me and they'll say, he's brilliant when we're doing it in this situation. So when we're doing it at home, he's brilliant. But as soon as I start to take it out into the world, he can't do it anymore. That's normal. That's because we haven't taught them that it means the same in that situation, in that new environment. The dog doesn't know. So it's not a case of having to be tougher on them. It's not a case of them being stubborn or ignorant. It's just that we didn't teach them it yet. Okay, so I know that feels a bit hard. For you lot, it means that the responsibility is back onto you lot again. We're not making the dog responsible for anything. They're just a dog. Isn't he got the cutest nose in the world? They're just a dog. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to start with a behavior which I'm hoping you're all really good at so far, is getting your dog onto a bed, and then we're going to proof them staying on the bed even when we're doing something silly. Okay, so I'll just go back to speaker view for a second, move this. So we've got 3 dogs to work with because they're all dead keen to be in here today. Dodo's being a pain in the bum. Have you got any bed? Yeah, leave those alone because they're mine. Yeah, on your bed. On your bed. Good. So first ask for the behavior and make sure you reward it. So you can't see Twiggy at the minute. You can just see her legs. Let's see if we can swing you around a little bit so you can see her. Don't know if you'll be able to. Cars, no, the desk's going to be in the way. So anyway, so we're going to reward for doing the behavior. We're going to reward frequently enough that they want to continue doing that behavior. And we're going to start bringing in small distractions. So the small distractions to begin with that you're training at home can be you. So things like when I move and you manage to maintain that response, then you're going to get reinforced. Or what I could do, Dodo, come here, when they're getting really good at it, I'm going to be rewarding the girls for staying down where they are while he's doing things with me. So he's getting rewarded for responding to doing that. They're getting rewarded for staying still. So they're being proofed that even while he's doing something exciting, yes, if they maintain that down and stay where they are, they get rewarded over there. So I had a, you've got any back down, lay down, stay there, maybe. I had a consultation with somebody this week where every time the dog was in a social situation, the dog was jumping up at other people because he loves people. But obviously he's starting to get quite big now. He's growing up. He's getting, it's getting uncomfortable. What are you doing? It's getting uncomfortable for people to have a puppy scrabbling up at them. And the owner had tried all sorts of things. But what they hadn't done is proof the behavior of sitting in the presence of other people. So within 5 or 10 minutes, we'd explain to this puppy, all you need to do to have the access to the people or the access to the reward from the owner is keep your bum on the floor. Okay, that makes sense. So what I'm going to do for you now is I want you to pop your dogs onto a bed, and I want you just to prove staying on the bed while you start doing other silly things. Okay, so you've already, Tessa, you're already in a perfect position because your little one's already still. So you go over her, give her a reward to tell her that's what you wanted to continue to do. Because quite often when we get up and we start moving, they'll do what Dodo's just done. And he's come over. I'm on my knees, which is hard for him because, yes, yeah, you see, it's hard for him because I'm on my knees and he thinks when I'm on my knees, I'm accessible. So I understand that because I haven't taught you go and lay down while I'm on my knees, have I? You ready? Go and lay down. No, go lay down. On your bed, monkey. No, on your bed. Dodo, don't help yourself to the treats. Lay down. Good. Stay there. That's a good boy. Stay there. Okay. So even though I know you've done this already, what I want you to think about is when you take it out into the wild, don't expect your dog to, I'm going to kick you out in a minute, monkey child. Don't expect your dog to be able to do it straight away. First, I want you to think about how difficult is it? Don't expect them to be able to sit and do a beautiful sit or a beautiful down or a stay while there's a dog right next to them inviting them to play. To begin with, give them enough distance that they're able to offer that behavior so you can highly reinforce that behavior. And then as they start to understand that's the right thing to do, then you can start to make it harder. If you've got friends, it's really easy to practice with a friend's dog, or if you've got a friend that your puppy loves, you can have that friend be at a distance where the pup's able to cope. They're able to offer the behavior that you prefer. Okay, and then you can have your friends start becoming, so with this particular consult that I did the other day, then I ended up jogging past, because this puppy had a particular issue with joggers. I ended up jogging past the pup while the owner was rewarding maintaining that sit. And she was just completely gobsmacked, frankly, that the pup could do it. And I said, well, you'd never actually told him what you did want him to do. You'd just been trying to stop him from jumping up or getting excited. As soon as you feel yourself thinking the word, how do I stop this behavior? What I want you to do is try and change your mindset to, what can I teach and reinforce instead? What can I help my dog to learn that I do want them to do, instead of getting in that, how do I stop frame of mind? Does that make sense to everybody? And it's not easy. You do have to slowly build up what they're able to cope with. And if they're getting it wrong, what we need to remember is we're asking for it to be too difficult. We're asking them to do it in too difficult a situation, or we're not reinforcing the correct behavior often enough, or we're not using a reinforcer that is valuable enough in the face of that choice we're asking them to make. Okay, so you can increase the frequency of reward, you can decrease the difficulty, you can increase the motivation to do that behavior you prefer. So just because it isn't working doesn't mean to say we can't change something to make it work better. Now then, there's some situations though, where what you've got in your hand, be it their favorite toy or their favorite food, it just doesn't work. There's some situations where that thing is just not ever going to be valuable enough. So we talk about things like with Dodo, chasing birds. It's never going to be a choice between a bird and a piece of beef burger. The bird is always going to win. Okay, so they are things that we call environmental reinforcers. things that are in the environment that are the most motivating thing to the dog, which you can't keep control of. You can't keep in your pocket, you can't keep hold of, but they are the thing that the dog wants in that situation. So they are actually the reward, if we can change how we think about them. If we can explain to the dog to be allowed to go and chase and get that thing, or to go and sniff that bush, or to walk further on the end of the lead, all you have to do is offer this behavior. All right. So that's a principle called PREMAC, if you want to learn a bit more about that. And it basically means the more likely behavior from the dog's point of view, which is, for example, chasing the birds, is earned by doing the less likely behavior, which is walking tidily with me, or looking at me, or sitting and waiting until I say, go on, get the birds. All right, so that's the PREMAC principle. And that's a principle that we used to be exposed to when we were tiny. Do you remember your mum saying, you can't have your pudding unless you eat your veg? Yeah. The pudding was the big reward that we were trying to earn. We didn't want to eat those vegetables. We just didn't want to do it. But you can use the same principle with your dog. If you can, look at me for 2 seconds, I will give you the release cue to go and chase the birds. And then we can slowly grow that behavior. You're a monster. You're sacked. We can slowly grow that behavior until the point at which the dog understands I need to wait for that release cue before I can go and get that behavior. So with him, might have to kick the girls out, this might be too exciting. With him, something like grabbing on a toy is highly reinforcing. They're all going to get in the way. This is the thing he desperately would like to get, even harder when the other dogs are there saying they would like it as well. But if I can build up his resilience, that if he continues to maintain that sit, get it, then he's going to get that thing that he wants. Now, a toy in my hand, obviously, different to an environmental, look at me, there's some grease bombs in this house. That toy in my hand is different from those environmental reinforcers, but you can use them in exactly the same way. All you've got to do is make sure that you're preventing your dog from accessing them without you using the release cue. It's that blooming squeaky thing again, isn't it? Any questions about that? Do you understand the idea? I know it's a really tricky idea to understand because we kind of think that all rewards have to be in our hands. But as I say, it falls apart when that reinforcer that we can hold, that we can keep hold of, isn't rewarding enough for the dog in that situation. So any questions about that bit? No, that's because you haven't hit that yet. Do you know when this really comes into play? Is when they hit that teenage phase, which some of you are going to be coming to really quite rapidly. Teenagers, because they find it much harder to control their impulses. They become more aroused more easily, not just sexually aroused, but emotionally aroused. Come on. Much more easily because their brain is going through changes. You are sacked. You are so sacked. I'm going to get my chair because it's because I'm on my knees and he thinks that I'm going to be working with him. Oh. So, why are they more easily aroused? Because the emotion system in the brain starts to change. It grows, it becomes more sensitive. They have what they call a secondary sensitive phase or fear phase, so that things that they haven't been exposed to before are going to make them more concerned or worried and need to react to. So if we have a look at the brain then, this beautiful analogy I've just recently been exposed to, a way of explaining it, is you've got two parts to your brain. You've got your safety, your watching, your original, your old part of your brain, which we're going to use our thumb to show you, and that lives right in the center of your brain, and it has direct communication to the spinal cord. Direct communication to the spinal cord. And normally, what happens then is the thinky part of the brain, the sensible part of the brain, wraps over the top of it and keeps it safe. So this is where you think, shall I go chase that bird? Shall I go talk to that dog? Shall I go say hi to that person? And the thinky brain is there, and it's protecting, and it's keeping that emotional center of the brain safe. But if the emotional center of the brain becomes reactive and concerned, what actually happens is it disconnects from the thinking part of the brain, and it takes over. So there's no thinking going on anymore. It's all reactive. It's all trying to keep the body safe. So the analogy, and I love the analogy, is, have you ever heard the term when you flip your lid? So what happens is the emotional part that's hidden in the center takes over, and it pushes the thinking part of the brain out of the way. So it's disconnected. Thinking part's no longer functioning. This completely takes over. Yeah. So when you get a situation where your pup's desperately trying to get to something and they can't hear you anymore, it's because they just cannot do it. So we had somebody said that their pup gets into this bitey emotional phase, and they seem to completely lose their thinking ability. Well, the truth is, yes, they do. They go into just emotional overload, and it's a bit like even when we were teenagers, we used to do the same, didn't we? We'd completely lose it. We just wouldn't be able to think sensibly or calm ourselves down, and there was nothing that anybody could say or do. We just had to get ourselves through it. So how should we react as owners then when our dogs get ourselves into that condition? First, recognize that your dog isn't doing it to upset you. They're doing it because they are upset. The first and most important thing is to consider not making it worse. So don't add emotion to emotion. Stay very calm. Help them to get out of the situation that's causing it. Don't focus on the behavior and trying to change the behavior while they're in that frame of mind, because it's just not going to work, because the thinking brain, the learning brain, is disconnected at that stage. Get them out of that situation, get them where they can calm down, let them calm down, and then the thinking brain can start to function properly again, and we can start teaching them. And that becomes really important when we think about using things like the Premack principle and environmental rewards. If those environmental rewards keep causing over arousal and overstimulation, and the emotional brain starts getting overexcited, we can't teach in that situation. So we've got to slowly build the brain's ability to keep thinking in that emotional arousing situation. Okay, so that's a bit sciencey, and I apologize for that. This is very much Dodo and Maybe, my two dogs, very reactive to environments, find it really difficult to think straight in environments. Also with Twiggy a little bit, she had so many fears when she was a puppy that we had to really be careful that we were only asking her to train in situations that she could really cope with. And now for most situations, she's really good. All right, so when we're going to talk, taking this right back to sort of sensible training principles, what you're going to find now is with your lead walking, it might be that in some situations, your puppy can walk nicely on the lead with you. But then there's other situations where it all falls apart, and they'll start doing silly things like wanting to pull back and panicking and not being able to take the treats and, you know, really having a meltdown. And I really want you to bring to mind what we've spoken about just now when they're doing that, and just calm down. So what do I do? What do I mean by just calm down? We've got a dog. Hello. Here's a dog. Here's a Dodo on a lead. Oh. And let's imagine, go on your bed, please. Let's imagine that he's just seen something, and cats, when he sees a cat and he's on his lead, he gets very focused and he really wants to investigate it, but it's not appropriate to go over and investigate strange cats on the street. So what do I do? First of all, when he first sees the thing, keep your lead loose. If his arousal levels start to go up and he's starting to pull on the lead and potentially hurt himself or even escape from the lead, then I'm going to slide my hand down the lead, so I'm not losing connection, but I'm not yanking it, so I'm sliding. And I'm going to put my hand in the collar or the front of the harness, facing the back of my hand to the dog and the front of my hand in the collar, like this. And I'm going to walk with the dog or the puppy right close to my leg. Remember here, we're just getting them out of that situation, but we want to get them out of that situation the calmest way possible. So hand into the collar, my hand then comes to my leg, and I'm going to take the dog out of that situation very smoothly. It's not yanking. I'm not going to add any verbal to that. I'm not going to tell them off or shout at them. I'm literally going to slide straight in and move. All right. Now, remembering that could, if your puppy dislikes physical restraint, if they have a problem with physical restraint, that could upset them. So we're going to train that as a rewarded behavior to begin with. Okay, so I want you to get them used to that kind of contact as a rewarded behavior, so that when you do it in a situation where they're already aroused, it's not shouldn't add to that emotion. It should just be something that you routinely do. It means you can turn them away from the thing that they're focusing on or worrying about. It means you can move them away from. Remembering there's lots of other ways to do it, but if they've really switched off and the food and the silly voice and the toy is not working, we just need to move them. We just need to get them out of there. Now, obviously, if they're tiny, you can still pick them up and just go. So we can do that. But when they're getting bigger, which they are going to be doing, some of them getting a decent size and strong, and especially people like Bruno, he's going to be a heavy, heavy boy when he's fully grown. Teaching them that you're just going to move them is really important. So, any questions on that bit for me? Hello, go on then, Bruno and James.
Just with regards to the like the only time he really loses the plot is when he bites. Yeah. Probably a couple of times a day for 5 minutes or something. Yeah. Yeah. And nothing works, right?
Yeah.
So what we did, I think it was the Dawn who I spoke to a bit ago about it. She said basically just walk out the room, shut the door, count to 10, go back in.
Yeah.
Which, to be honest with you, that works.
Yeah.
Now it pretty much works the first time. But initially it took 5 or 6 goes, because as soon as you open the door, straight back to your feet. The only issue is if he's hanging off your foot, is getting out of the room without it. But at the minute, to be honest with you, now, if you do it once now, it's like totally different. When you open the door again, you just say, leave it, calm down or whatever. And he seems to, so he is sort of getting it. But I know at the minute on some of his toys, I'm finding blood on them from his teeth. And we found a couple of teeth on the floor. So I should say they are proper giving him grief. So, yes. You know what I mean? But
yeah, absolutely. And we do know, don't we, that we tend to be in a worse mood. We don't handle life as well if we're in pain, Yeah. So, absolutely. But it sounds like you're getting there. Emotional self-control, in other words, the ability to keep your lid on it. Yeah. That's something that we grow. That's something that develops over the course of time by little situations where we're tested. So if you think about it, as toddlers, even when we were put into a sweet shop and we weren't allowed to touch the sweets, we'd have a proper meltdown, wouldn't we? Well,
Yeah,
I don't know about you, but I can go into a sweet shop now without losing my temper. You know?
yeah, a bit different in the off license, but
True. This is true. Yeah. If they don't let you have that with me at the minute, it's those flavoured gin liqueurs. Gin liqueur, definitely. But yeah, so it sounds like you're getting there because it sounds like he's calming down quicker.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know why, but he doesn't really do it to me, to my feet. It's the other three. It's my wife and the two daughters, especially my youngest because she's the smallest. Whether that's because she is smaller or he thinks he can take the mick more with her or what, I don't know. But I say you know, going out the room does work. It's just sometimes it's bloody. It doesn't. You don't. It just turns into a rabid thing for a few minutes. But
And it's normal, you know, it's horrible, but it's one of the downsides of living with a dog, with a puppy, I'm afraid. So with regards to the rest of the members of your family, make sure that they're being consistent, that they're always doing the same, because quite often, especially with small children, they'll get stuck. They won't know what to do. So you have to kind of be there to help them to do the right thing, to supervise them and to assist them, because they'll kind of get, I don't know what to do, and they'll start panicking, and that can sometimes excite the dogs. And
I think as well, not a firm enough voice. It's more of a no, like that, rather than
it can sound a bit like they're still playing.
Yeah.
So we don't have to ever be horrible to our dogs, but we do have to be aware of what is reinforcing the behavior. You know, I have a that is enough cue when the dogs are really getting on my wick, which they are going to do sometimes. You know, sometimes they're in the mood to play rough, and I've just done a 12-hour day, and I'm tired and I'm stressed, and I just want them to go away and, you know, sort themselves out and stop bothering me. So having a that's enough, I don't want you cue, or go away cue, that really helps. You know, having a that'll do, go away kind of thing. Anyone else then on that subject of, you know, you're going to get this tiny little space where your puppy appears to be pretty perfect, where you're really starting to understand each other, where the cues are making sense to them, and it's almost like this beautiful golden space, and then suddenly adolescence hits, and it can come as a bit of a shock, to be honest. So I want you to be ready for it. And the more you can make sure that your dog understands your cues and they understand your house rules and how you want them to react in different situations, the more you can get that really solidly built into their brain while they're tiny, while they're still these sponges requiring knowledge, the better it's going to be and the easier it will be going through adolescence. But I can guarantee you will all still have to deal with it because it's a natural part of development. So was that a wave test? Were you waving at me, or was it just you moving your hands? No? Okay. So I'm going to unmute you all because I think we're going to have a free for all, being as it's our last one together. So if you unmute yourselves. And one of the things I think there are benefits to doing the online classes. The benefits are obviously that you get the video and the demos and things are easier then to repeat back for yourself. One of the big downsides is the social side for me and for you is not being able to get to know your class people and in sort of being in the same situations together and shared experiences. So one of the things we can share though is the last goodbye at the end of class. So what we're going to do for the last goodbye is we're going to wave our puppies at each other. It sounds a bit rude, but it's not really. So what I want you to do is get yourself a puppy. I have one already.
Yes.
And as long as they're happy and relaxed for you to do it, let's just wave our puppies. And say goodbye.
Come on. Come on.
Sit.
You're gonna wave. Wave at everyone.
And I'm really happy. I'm really hoping I'm going to get to see this lot in real life at some point.
You did it, Tess. You did it.
And Bruno says, "You're not waving me.
No, not up for that.
Not waving me. Not today." Oh, Twiggy wants to go. Oh, do you want to go? Dear, come here. Go away. Come here, Twig. Come on. Oh, there's a dodo in the way. Come here.
Boy.
God, just send you.
You're horrible today. I'm going to sack you. I'm going to send you back. Send you to Spain.
Don't like that. You can edit. You can edit. Can't you?
Oh, look at Bruno.
Come on.
All right. Say goodbye. You know, you've still got access to your Facebook group. You can ask us questions there whenever you need to. And you're welcome to join us for future classes. Hopefully soon in real life, but depends on Boris and whether or not he changes the rules on us again. But,
Bit of a long journey for us.
Absolutely. I don't know. Anyway, we'll say goodbye. See you later.
Thank you very much. Bye bye.
See you.